Pierre-Elliott Trudeau
Bonjour, Nem Subge Aki Nenene. My spirit name is Strong Earth Man.
Bonjour. Wabino one pointers nekas them. In English it is translated as Morning Mist Woman, and I am of the Bear Clan.
Bonjour, Anin. Kagigito penesin in this nakaso. Makwa medo them. Translated from the Anishinaabe language, my name is translated to Talking Thunderbird, and I am of the Bear Clan.
Bonjour, my name is Wapski Nguan, Eagle Clan, and I'm the White Feather, and my name is Andrew Abogosas.
Today we're setting up an 11-foot teepee, which would be about the size an average family teepee in the days before the horses came on the plains. So this would be about the size. When the horses came, they went to bigger teepees, mostly averaging about 18 feet in diameter. So this is an 11-foot teepee.
Traditionally, when a teepee was erected, traditionally it was only the women that did that had that responsibility. The men's role in putting up the teepee was they provided the poles, but it was the woman who actually had the right to like I say, to put them up. If this were back in ancient times, Ron himself here wouldn't be involved with this. He wouldn't even be around. It would only be women here who would be putting up the teepee. If you notice the way you see the teepee is now, it is somewhat sort of resembles the flowing dress of a woman, and that's what how the teepee was built like that, is to resemble the actual dress of a woman. And the reason why it was built that way was to show respect to the women, because traditionally and culturally, the head of the community were the women, not the men. Because our society back then was totally matriarchal, not patriarchal as it is today. So, being that the woman, she was the life giver, and she was the one that you know, did all the cooking and preparing the food and the clothing, and well, took care of the house. So this was their responsibility, because the teepee was our house. And the mother, she raised the children there, she did all the sewing there, did all the cooking there, did the teaching there. Everything was there. So if you were in a camp and say there was 100 teepees, then all of those teepees that would have been up would have been put up by just women alone, men. And when it came to moving the camp, again, the women all worked together, all pitching together, and they all came and they dismantled the teepees. It was said that they were so proficient at it at that time that they could completely dismantle an entire camp with, say, 100 teepees within a matter of an hour or less, and that was it, and they were gone. And to set it up again, it took a number of women, only maybe 15-20 minutes, and the teepee was up in full place. Today, I think it's a little bit different, but the whole teaching of the teepee is very significant. You'll see that once the lodge poles are going to be erected, each pole in the teepee, including the flap pole, has a significant meaning, has a purpose. For example, the first one is a symbol of obedience, and then there's love and there's trust and many, many things. And as the poles go up, we'll be explaining that later on.
What we're setting up is a 4-pole teepee. They were used mostly on the foothills of the Rockies because a tripod is a sturdier teepee, and they were on the plains where the winds were quite strong and everything.
These first 4 poles are very significant. What will be happening here with Ron when he's putting up the poles, you're going to see the main one, that's going to be the doorway, and from there then he's going to be circling around in a circular motion from left to right where the poles will be put up.
The first pole that was put up signifies obedience. Obedience means guidance and wisdom outside of ourselves, using our ears before our mouth. We learn by listening to traditional stories, by listening to our parents and guardians. We learn by their behaviors so that we know what is right and what is wrong. The next pole signifies respect. Respect means giving honor to our elders, to the strangers that come to visit our community, and to all of life. We must honor the basic rights of people. The next pole represents humility. We are not above or below others in the circle of life. We are all equal. We feel humbled when we understand our Creator. The next pole represents happiness. As you saw earlier, the first poles were the 4 poles. Some used only 3, and it was like a tripod. And the 4th pole that was set up complete the doorway, and it teaches us happiness. We must show our enthusiasm and encourage others. Teaching of the next pole is love. If we are to live in harmony with one another, we must accept one another as we are. We have to accept all peoples, even though they are not of our circle. Love means to be good and kind to everyone. The next one is faith. We also must learn to believe and trust others, to believe in a power that is greater than all of us. To sustain our spirituality, we need to walk it every day, and to walk it each day in the best way that we can. It's not just once a week. It must be on a daily basis. Today, when we talk about cleanliness, most people think hygiene, and that's very important. But years ago, when old people talked about cleanliness, they meant spiritual cleanliness. The old kokums in their teepees used to say that spiritually, cleanliness comes from the heart. Clean thoughts come from a clean mind. And this comes from our own spirituality. With a clean mind comes a sense of peace. And we learn not to do harm to other people. And when you have good health habits, we also reflect a good, clean mind. Mama Wendamuin. We always learn to give thanks and to be thankful for all that we have. And we give that thanks to our Creator, the one who created us all. And we are privileged, and we must give thanks for all the love and for all that the Creator has given to us. And we give thanks for all the kind things that we do for others, or the kind things that others do for us. Sharing, we learn to be part of a family and the community by helping with giving of what we have, not only our food, but also whatever we have. For instance, our knowledge. You share that knowledge. And through the responsibility of sharing, we learn that we can work together and that we can enjoy the fruit, what is called the fruits of our labor. Song Iziwin. The next one is strength. And here we are not talking about physical strength, but spiritual strength. So you see that everything we do is based on a spiritual basis. And that's part of all of the 4 basic aspects of life, which of self, which is the physical self, the mental self, the emotional self, and the spiritual self. So everything that we do has a spiritual base. We must learn to be patient in times of trouble and not to complain, but to endure. And we show understanding by doing that. The next one is good child rearing. Children are gifts from the Creator. Children bring meaning to our lives. For without children, there would be no meaning. And this is a very important teaching that the elders are always talking about. We are the ones that are responsible for their well-being. We do that spiritually, emotionally, physically, and intellectually. Since we are blessed with the gift of representing the continuity of the circle of life, we perceive that to be the Creator's will. And the last one is hope. We always hope to look forward to moving towards good things. We need to have a sense that the seeds that we are planting will bear fruit for our children, families, and communities, now and for the future.
So if you can imagine, say we're back in the year 1600, or even earlier, or even 1490, Now you'd see out there, there'd be a lot of the kids would be outside. They'd be having their bedrolls, their furs, everything ready. They'd be coming and bringing things together because they'd see soon that their home was almost ready. So there'd be much excitement going on, much laughter, much joy, much sharing, a lot of singing. Singing was a very big, important part within our people, and celebrating was an important part. And we involved everybody, from the youngest to the very oldest. They were involved. Every person had a distinct role to play and something to contribute. And of course, back then the hide would be much different, because at that time it would have been buffalo hides that were used, so they've been very, very heavy. But the women were so used to it, they had a very unique way of putting it up. And to them it was nothing, it was very simple. But if the men tried, they struggled with that. But with the women, no problem at all whatsoever. And like I said earlier, each pole is significant. The pegs that are used are also significant. The ground pegs and the pegs that are holding up the top, the flap, are also very important, and they also have meanings as well. And you may notice that on the teepee there are some designs. Now, again, depending on the family that lived in the teepee, that the paintings on there were not just for decorative purposes, but they had a significant meaning. They let the other people know who was living there. Buffalo was very significant to our people. In fact, the role of the buffalo was, in comparison to today, was our supermarket, because it provided everything that we needed. It provided the material for the lodge. It provided food. It provided material for weapons and tools and clothing. So everything came from that. And you notice the horse, and then the eagle. The eagle was very significant, was very spiritual. Everything here had a spiritual meaning to it. And again, they also depicted different clans, and this also may represent it within this teepee. There may have been somebody who was of the eagle clan, who was of the wolf clan, who was of the buffalo clan. Like there's a buffalo, the bear clan.
Anishinaabe. Our family is very important to us, and our family are those that are closest to us. Our parents, our grandparents, our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our aunts, and everyone that is close to us. They give us roots that tie us to the lifeblood of the earth. And this is our extended family, and they give us that sense of belonging to our community.
Pegs that you see in the front that are holding the teepee together now, the significance of those pegs, that would symbolize unity and strength and family. Remember, the hide at that time would have been out of buffalo, so it would have been very, very heavy. And the pegs now you see that runs in the ground, that symbolized also that strength and stability. The flat and you notice the opening on the top, that was to allow the smoke from the inside to come out. So that acted sort of like, in a way, as a modern day chimney. People wondered, well, they said, well, in the wintertime it must have been quite cold. In fact, no, it was very warm, because in the wintertime we had what's called a lining, and it fit inside, and it too would have been made out of hide. And it would have gone from the floor up to about maybe halfway or 3/4 of the way up the teepee, and that acted as an insulation. So it was very warm in there. I myself had the opportunity a few winters back up in Riding Mountain National Park to spend I think actually it was about 4 days, 4 nights we spent in them, and it was very, very toasty in there, very, very warm. What would be happening now is that somebody would enter into the teepee, and what they would be doing is they would be adjusting the poles inside, and that would be making the hide more taut, and then expanding it and putting everything into proper balance and perspective. Because it's important to have the poles spaced accordingly so that it's balanced, and that's so it can withstand any kind of wind. It's not unbalanced, and that way it wouldn't topple. What's going to be happening now is this is almost completion. The latter part of the teepee is that now the flaps, the pole flaps, will be put in place, and then you'll see that the flaps will open up. And at nighttime, they could be closed for protection, or if it starts to rain or whatever, then they'll be closed. But mostly they're open, and thus allowing the smoke from the fire inside to come out. People are on the assumption too that they say, oh, it must be terribly smoky in these teepees. In fact, no, they weren't, because there was ventilation there, and the purpose of that top was, like I say, was like a chimney, so the smoke rose. So there was virtually no smoke inside them at all whatsoever. And if you heard mentioned earlier that the teepee represented the dress of the women, now if you look at the teepee and with the flaps, it looks like, now you can see where it does look more like a dress, and it looks like with a woman with her arms extended out. That's what that looks like now, if you see that. You know, at nighttime now, the flaps would be closed, and in the front there'd also be a flap which would be the doorway, and that would be closed. And if you notice now around it, that's how it's closed. And of course they would be secured as well, and it would overlap, and there you are. And of course the hides were waterproof, so naturally even in a real downpour they'd be nice and dry and toasty inside. And yet there still would be room enough for the smoke to come through the top yet. And the door flap usually was made out of hide as well, and it was a separate piece, and it would have been put on the front, and it was very easily removable. And the inside, the floor, there would be, usually would have been buffalo hide, buffalo robes inside, so it would have been very plush, very soft, wall-to-wall carpeting. And one of the things that I like to mention to people is that, if you notice, these teepees are very movable. So actually, this you see in front of you would have been your very first motorhome. Okay, they went on the road, dismantled, and went, there you go. So that was the first RV. Most teepees, would have been probably at least twice this size, if not 3 times this size. Like Ron said, this is a small one. This size of teepee may have been used also for a single person as well later on, because like I said, later on the teepees became much larger, and if you can imagine seeing a teepee about 3 times this size, and that's where you'd have your family living in. But now say a young child at the age of 13 became a man, he then would leave his family and get into his own. Sometimes he'd have his own lodge, and maybe he would stay in a teepee like this until he took a wife, and then a family, then they'd get a larger teepee as well.